All right. Looks like we are live. I'm just gonna take a minute to put in the recipes that we'll be using into the comments. So feel free to click on those. Cool, they just went live. So my name is Julie. I work in the Office of Student Life, and this is the second installment of Cooking with Colbath. So Julie Colbath, coordinator of Civic Engagement. I also run the food pantry on campus. So we've been starting to do some of these classes, just kind of getting you informed about how to make some stuff at home, especially using pantry staples. So most of the stuff that we'll make for like the main dish today, actually you can find in the pantry. So the first thing we'll be making is this cheesy vegetarian chili mac. It's from a website called Budget Bites, which is a really good website. I really like to use it. It kind of has everything broken down by cost, and they try to like give you the best bang for your buck in terms of nutrition. So some of the things that we will be using today. We've got some chili powder, flour, diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, corn, called for beans, but I don't have black beans, some vegetable stock, garlic, macaroni, noodles, and beans. It also calls for cheese, but I'm just keeping that in the fridge for now until we need it. So please bear with me as I move about my kitchen. But we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we need to do is to dice the onion and mince the garlic. So I'm going to try to wheel my little island over here so you can see it. Yes, dinosaur pasta. So the recipe calls for macaroni noodles. I really only have like spaghetti noodles in my house right now, except for these dinosaur adventure shaped pastas. So lucky us, dinosaurs, we can come back again. So last time I showed you how to cut an onion, and it seemed like a little bit intricate where you make cuts this way and then you make cuts this way. That's like generally if you want a more even dice. Most of the time I don't do that because I don't necessarily care. So we'll just, I peeled this onion already and I washed it off. So I'm just going to cut off the ends. And then I'm going to stand it up because it has two flat ends and cut it in half. And then what I normally do is I just make cuts like this and then make cuts like this. Sometimes it slides around a little bit and it doesn't give you as even of a cut, which that most of the time matters, right? If you're trying to cook a bunch of different things at the same time, it's nice when they're all generally the same size so that they'll cook evenly. Whoop, see, slid all over. So then we'll just kind of chop the rest of these up. Depends on how slippery your onion is as to how well that will work. Yeah, I bought those dino pastas at Meijer, so felt like it could make quarantine a little bit better. So then I'm just going to shove my onion half over to that side and then just do the same thing with this other half. Slipped again. let's make some bigger cuts. So we have a little bit of like some different sizes, but it'll all cook down pretty fine. And when I'm eating things like chunks, to like different textures, just a little bit of a variety. So now I have some garlic cloves, and I just took them off of a bulb. So this is a newer bulb. You can also substitute granulated garlic if you don't have it. So what I normally do is I didn't peel these yet. I'll just cut off the ends, which then helps the skin come off a lot easier. So now we've got a bulb, garlic, or a clove of garlic. The bulb is the whole thing. And so with these onions, the easiest way to mince is to take your knife and flatten the garlic. So you might be able to see it that way. So I put the garlic on the cutting board and then I flattened it. And that just helps it so it doesn't roll around as much. And so then you can kind of just chop it. You'll need to do it a few different ways, just so that it gets to be sort of small. Because you don't, some people might like biting into large chunks of garlic, but not everybody does. You can also use a mincer. So I have one of those, which sometimes I use if I don't want to get my hands all smelly, or if I feel like I'm going to touch my eyes. That's always a slippery slope and is not a good feeling. So we'll just do the same. So the recipe calls for 2 cloves. I'm a big garlic fan, so I'm going to add 3. And I had like, this was the end of a different bulb and there was only 1 clove left and didn't feel like trying to put it somewhere else. So I'm just going to flatten these 2 cloves and then just start mincing. You want to be careful with your fingers. Sometimes it's recommended that you make like a claw so that your fingers tips don't actually touch the blade. I feel like with knife skills, it's good to practice. It's also just kind of like what's comfortable for you. You just kind of got to find your own rhythm. All right. So we've got our onion diced and our garlic minced. So we're going to come over here. Huzzah. So I know this pot looks really big. So this recipe makes a lot. For better or worse, the nice thing is that it freezes really well. So we're going to add a little bit of oil, and you can measure it out. I normally don't, but it calls for tablespoons. So we'll turn on the burner, add a little bit of oil, because we're just going to saute these onions up and the garlic. So this recipe, it suggests that you use a 5-quart pan. I had a 3-quart and an 8-quart. So we're using the 8-quart. But it's nice always to have a little bit of room, right? You don't want to like be at the brim of your pan. And then everything overflows. So you can maybe see the oil in there. Just gonna swirl it around a little bit so that it kind of coats the bottom of the pan. We'll just let it heat up for a quick second. And then we'll add the onion and the garlic. Are there if you have any cool recipes that you've been using in quarantine, please feel free to put them in the chat. Recipe sharing is very important and can be very handy, right? Because I know sometimes I get into ruts where I just don't want to cook anything new. And then I get a little bit bored, and so So we are going to add our onions and our garlic. What I normally do is when I'm like scraping against the cutting board is to use not the sharp end of the knife, but the other end so that you don't kill the blade. So I'm just gonna scrape these in here. You can also freeze onion and garlic pretty easily. So if you find it's easier sometimes to just like do a bunch of prepping and then put it in sort of like smaller sizes so you don't have to try to like unfreeze things in like huge quantities just to get a little bit out. That works for some people. If you're using fresh herbs, you can freeze them in olive oil, and it makes for like a nice base and stuff. So I'm just gonna let this saute for a little bit. So I'll stir it every so often. It'll probably take about 2 to 3 minutes. I want the onions to get sort of soft and transparent. And so it'll have a really nice smell coming off of it as you're cooking. So most of the stuff you can get at the student food pantry, which is still open by appointment only on Fridays. And you'll need to email the Thursday before by 5 o'clock just so that we can make sure that we have everything ready for you. So most of the stuff you can find at the pantry. So you can find the diced tomatoes there, tomato sauce. We have lots of corn, so please come take the corn. Kidney beans, black beans, pinto beans. Right now I think we have beef broth. So you definitely could add, I'm using chicken broth because that's what I have. It just technically doesn't make it vegetarian. So you can add whatever broth you want. This recipe is super nice because it's pretty adaptable, right? You can swap things out if you don't necessarily have them. It is vegetarian. If you substituted, I would imagine it probably would work okay with like a gluten-free, like 1-to-1 blend flour. So you could try doing that and then adding some sort of gluten-free noodle. I haven't tried a lot of the gluten-free noodles. I've tried Bonza, which is made out of chickpeas. That would make us gluten-free. Let me just show you what's going on in the pot. So it's sizzling a little bit. The onions are starting to get a little bit transparent, but we'll still want them to cook for a couple more minutes. You could easily make this vegan if you substituted the cheese for a non-dairy cheese. Sometimes non-dairy cheeses have a little bit of a little bit tricky to get them to melt, so you kind of just have to find what's best for you. If you don't like cheese, I think you could easily omit this. All right. And then you can, the site that this is on, Budget Bites, there is a different version that's like has beef in it. So I think it has all of the same ingredients except one of the cans of beans you swap out with a half a pound of ground beef. Sure, you could also easily use ground turkey, or if you are vegetarian and find some sort of like soy-based or like meat alternative products, you could try to use tofu or like the soy chorizo. So this, again, like this recipe is super adaptable, which is really nice, and it makes a lot, which if you like to meal prep, then that's great. Or if you have a lot of people in the house or don't like cooking all the time, then it's a good recipe for you. So they're looking better. Some of them are starting to brown a little bit. So we are going to go to the next step, which is adding the flour and the chili powder. So I've measured out 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of chili powder. So I'm just going to sprinkle those in. We're going to keep stirring it and sauteing it for about 2 minutes until the flour and the chili powder are starting to coat the bottom of the pan. And a lot of times flour is added as like a thickener. So I mean, you could definitely, if you are, you can see that a little bit. If you are gluten free, you might be able to test out, like if you could maybe try to use some cornstarch or something. You could also, there are a lot of comments, I was sort of reading through some of them today on the website of different adjustments that people have made. Right, some people think that it doesn't have enough spice, so they've added some cumin, maybe some jalapeno if you like it spicy. Got a nice chili powder smell. For this, we also have, going back to what you can find in the pantry, that's in this recipe. You can find pasta at the pantry, pasta noodles. You can, so the chili powder that I have, a good way to stock up your spices is at the dollar store. This one is from Ollie's. It's a nice way, right? Because spices can get really expensive. It's a nice way to broaden your spice collection, right? Because spices can really make or break a meal. And right, if you have like very basic foods, it's nice to have some variety, and spices can really do that. All right. So I think it's been a couple minutes. So what we're gonna do now is drain and rinse the beans. So got some black beans that we're gonna open. And again, one of the reasons to drain your beans is it really helps sort of get rid of some excess sodium or salt that happens when you're preserving and canning beans. I normally, when I'm at the store, try to buy the reduced sodium cans if I can find them, or just even simply rinsing them is a really good way to get rid of some of the salt. All right, so those are drained. If I were using kidney beans and pinto beans, I'd also drain those. My hair looks crazy. But I didn't have pinto beans or kidney beans. So in place of the kidney beans, I'm going to use these chili beans. And since they have a little bit of like a chili sauce, I'm not going to drain that. I think it'll add a good flavor. If you were using kidney beans, I would suggest that you rinse them and drain them because you don't want that extra juice in there. And then I am using dried beans. This is not something, to be honest, that I normally have in my house. My mom had just given them to me. So we're going to add, so I'll tell you about how I set them overnight. So we drained the beans. We're going to add the diced tomatoes. We're not going to drain this because the juices from the tomatoes add a nice flavor. You can also give it like a little bit more of need a base to work off. And now we're adding a tomato sauce. We're just gonna stir that around a little bit. And then we'll add some broth. So again, I'm using chicken broth. The recipe calls for vegetable broth. I find that more often I will buy like bouillon cubes or like this bouillon powder. Just because, and I don't have a bunch of like cans sitting in my cupboard of like vegetable broth or chicken broth. And right, it sucks sometimes when you like need 3 cups and a can might be 2 cups, and then you have to open another can, and then sometimes I forget about things in my fridge, and so it's nice when you're able to just make as much as you need. So now I'm adding all the beans. Added the chili beans in place of the kidney beans, black beans, and now I'm adding these pinto beans. It also calls for corn. So in the recipe, it uses frozen corn. I ran out of frozen corn, so I have canned corn. So I just measured out a cup of corn. One of the nice things about this recipe also is it's a one-pot recipe. I don't know about all y'all, but I'm so sick of doing dishes. So it's nice when there are less dishes to do. So I'll show you. This is all mixed together, kind of just like a soup right now. But extra juices will be necessary for the since we have our noodles and they're uncooked. For the noodles to soak up. So then this will get a little less like liquidy and a little bit more solid. So we stirred the mix. So now we're gonna add the macaroni noodles. And again, you can kind of use whatever noodle you have on hand. Some people might use shells. Like I just don't think that like pasta noodles would work very well, right? They're like really thin, really long. So I'm using these cool diner noodles. So we're gonna pour those in. And we will stir to combine it. I feel like this is one of the like last dishes always good. This is one of the last days. So like, I mean it's getting colder and so I feel like it will get warmer, but today feels chilly, so it's nice to have like something warm and comforting. And I think this whole recipe when they like priced it out was less than $10. And it has 8 servings. So it's pretty good. So we are going to put a lid on here. We're gonna let it heat up until it starts to boil. And so we'll stir it every so often. And then once it gets to a boil, we'll reduce the heat and just let it simmer. Just to let the pasta cook. And then we'll be pretty close to done. We'll just need to add some cheese. So one of the things that I did with the dry beans, which I posted on our Instagram story, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you should, is I just took a pound of beans and I soaked them in this pan overnight. And so you just add about 2 inches of cold water on top of it and some salt. You just let it sit anywhere from like 6 hours to 12 hours. And then the next morning, You'll drain it, you'll rinse the beans, and then you'll put them in a pot, and again, fill it up with about an inch of cold water. And then you put it on the stove and let it cook. Once it gets to a boil, you want to put like a lid sort of on, but not fully on, so it still has some way for heat to escape, and simmer it for about an hour. And it kind of just depends as to like what texture of bean you want. Right, you can keep cooking them until they're softer, if you prefer a little bit of a firmer bean. You can kind of cook it to however you want. So that was interesting. That was one of the first times that I ever took fried beans. I feel like sometimes I just don't always am like prepared to make something, so I don't always think about cooking them. They did make a lot. So for a pound of beans, let me grab the container. So now I have this whole container of beans. So I'm excited to see what sort of recipes I can make. Does anyone have good pinto bean recipes? Use pinto beans in different things. All right, I'm gonna check this to see how it's looking. Give it a little stir. Not boiling quite yet. So a few more minutes. Yeah, beans are a really good source of protein. It's nice when you are able to soak them yourself, just because then you're able to kind of control what goes in them, right? Sometimes when like things are canned, extra stuff is added so that it stays preserved for longer. So doing it yourself kind of just allows you to like have a little bit more autonomy on what you want. Yes, tacos, burritos. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Hopefully you're eating some tacos. I was a little bit afraid to make some different, very Mexican dish since last time we made enchiladas, and I ate tacos yesterday. But it is a great idea. One of my friends was talking about this taco recipe that she found in this vegan cookbook that is chickpeas and broccoli. So maybe one time we can make that. She was really surprised that it was actually really good. I don't really know what's in it, but we have lots of chickpeas at the pantry. So in the meantime, while this is sort of getting ready, I preheated the oven. So the oven is set to 350, and we're going to make a s'mores dip. So I don't know about you, but I feel like summer is coming, and I'm excited that it's coming, but also like a little bit sad because I don't know if we're gonna be able to do a lot of camping or anything. And I've been craving some s'mores. Here we got some the recipe calls for milk chocolate. So you can kind of use any chocolate you want. Marshmallows and graham crackers. So this recipe I've never tried before, but I think it'll be really good. Let's go check this again. So it's getting close. You can sort of potentially, I don't know how well you can actually see it. It's starting to bubble. So I'm gonna let it like get to a little bit more of a boil before we turn it down. So this recipe is gonna be real easy, and I hope that it's gonna be a game changer. So I'm just pulling it up to make sure. So all we're gonna do is pour these chocolate chips in an oven-safe skillet. So if you have a cast iron skillet, you can use that. I have a stainless steel pan. Then I'm going to use scissors. So this is a good bag to use because I accidentally left it out in my car and some of it melted together. Doesn't matter because all this chocolate's gonna melt anyway. So I just poured the chocolate into this pan, and we're just gonna stick that right in the oven. We're gonna do it for 3 to 4 minutes or until the chocolate is melted. I'm not sure if those might melt a little bit faster because they are mini chips. All right. Stir this around. Heat up just a little bit more. So I wanted to talk a little bit about stock. You can make your own stock from vegetable scraps. So I go through phases where I'll just have a bag in my freezer, like a gallon-sized bag that I'll throw, like, for example, I could throw these onion ends, like onion peels, the ends of your carrots, some celery. There's some different vegetable scraps in a bag, and just put them in the freezer until I have enough. And then basically all to make your own vegetable stock, you can just put water in a pan with your scraps and then boil it. And then you just strain out the scraps and it is boiling. And then you have vegetable broth, which you can either use immediately or freeze whenever you want. It's just a nice way, right, to like reuse stuff, make the most of what you have. So this is boiling. We're going to turn down to low. And then we're going to let it simmer for 12 to 15 minutes. I'm going to set the other timer to let that boil. Chocolate chips are amazing. They're a good thing to have on hand, right? Because, you know, they're a good little snack. Or they're good for cookies, or, you know, sometimes I'll put, like, I'll buy plain yogurt, and then I'll put, like, bananas in it, or with chocolate chips and peanut butter. That's good. What are some of y'all's favorite ways to use chocolate chips? Woo, it's hot. So you can kind of see that it's like starting to melt, but not fully melted. That was about 3 minutes. So I'm gonna turn that, just kind of like stir it around a little bit. And then I might put it back in. Sometimes, like when you're trying to melt chocolate in the microwave, it's a good idea to like just stir it every so often, right? Because you don't want to have it burn. So if you stir it, just the like action of the thermal action of you trying to move it is also helpful. I'm gonna set the timer for 2 more minutes. Oh, trail mix. That's good. Trail mix is so nice and also so adaptable, right? You can put nuts, goldfish, pretzels, chocolate, dried fruit. We have some walnuts and some raisins at the pantry right now. And there's some random snacks, some different like chocolate chips and stuff. So it can make a really good trail mix. I like trail mix when I'm like going for walks or doing hikes or something. It's a good way to have a very portable snack. All right, I'm gonna see how this is coming. We don't want it to burn because then we also are going to put some some marshmallows on there. And make sure that if your handle doesn't have some sort of like silicone on it, that you're not just touching it with your hand like I did a couple minutes ago. Have y'all been reading any good books in quarantine? I feel like I started reading Harry Potter for probably at least the third time. It's been at least 5 years since I've read it. And so you can see that our chocolate is melting. We still have a couple chunks where it's together from being left in the car. So generally, that probably would not happen if you have a bag of chocolate chips. That is normal. So I'm just going to let it go into the oven for just another minute, just to make sure it fully melts. And I think, again, I haven't tried this recipe before, but I think you can reheat it pretty easily if you just put it back in the oven, just to kind of like get it back up to a good temp. So I am stirring this every so often, and I can show you in a minute. It's probably hard to tell, but it does seem to be getting a little bit thicker as the noodles start to soak up some of the juices. So I'll put that back on. Timer is about to go off. It is a very annoying timer. So we'll stir this a little bit again. Almost touched it with my hand. All right, it seems like it's got a good, pretty good consistency. Hold on 1 second. Sweat my fingers. So we've got our melted chocolate. Yay. So I'm just going to make it sort of even. Not that it particularly matters, but just so then we can put our marshmallows on top. So we'll grab marshmallows, and I think, you don't really need to cut them or anything. I would imagine if you had mini marshmallows, I probably would just throw them on the pan. Let me grab my popcorn. But I'm just stacking them on top, and then we'll throw them back in the oven, and it'll give it that like nice sort of like broiled or charred. I don't know. Do y'all like your? Some people are very into like s'mores when they like burn the marshmallow, right? So the outside's like all black, and then the inside are nice and gooey. I prefer a very gooey marshmallow that's like toasty. I get very sad when I accidentally light mine on fire. But I am looking forward to summer, hopefully being back on campus where we can see all y'all. I don't know, we probably won't use this whole bag, but kind of trying to put them in spots all over. Because I love marshmallows. I made Rice Krispie treats the other day, and I feel like it's a very like underrated treat. The nice thing with Rice Krispie treats, right, is that you can make it with like any kind of cereal. So I put all the marshmallows on top of it. And now let's see how long we need to cook them for. 2 to 3 minutes until marshmallows are brown. So we're going to put them back in. We're going to set the timer for 2 minutes. And then the nice thing about this dip is I think you can kind of put, whatever you, like you can dip whatever you want in there, right? Like pretzels would be really good. I mean, graham crackers are a staple, but you could also dip like fruit, Oreos, anything that you kind of have on hand. I've just been looking a lot for like easy desserts, right? I think especially when it's hard to find flour and stuff, I'm being a little bit more careful in what I'm making, right? Knowing that like I might always not be able to go to the store, or they might not have what I want in stock at the store. So I was going, I might do a different week, because now we'll start trying to do these bi-weekly. So if you have any suggestions on things you might want to see, throw them in the comments, and I'm happy to look through them. Or you can send us different recipes, and we can feature them. I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh, I was gonna make like a pudding pie. I had gotten. You can make your own crusts out of like Oreos or graham crackers. And so I'd gotten some of those when I had gone to the grocery store last. And then if you add pudding and like Cool Whip, it's a really easy dessert that I used to love as a kid. But I ran out of milk, so that won't be happening for now. So we've got our marshmallows are not browned. I'm gonna leave them in there for a couple more minutes. Meanwhile, yes, Mars fondue. So good. There was a brief period where my workplace had a chocolate fountain, and so sometimes as like celebrations, we would put chocolate in our fountain, and I thought it was very fun, but you always felt very full afterwards. So I'm gonna try a little bit of this to see how the noodles are. Because right, that's more or less the determining factor right now is how cooked noodles are. And you'll want to make sure you're stirring this while it's sort of simmering so that the noodles don't stick to the bottom. But it is, again, I don't know how well you'll be able to, but it is. It might be a little bit thinner for me right now since I also used some chili beans and didn't drain them. Right, any amount of liquid can matter. All right, so noodles are almost there. Again, it's kind of to your preference. If you like more al dente noodles, don't cook it for as long. If you like sort of softer noodles, cook it for a little bit longer. Our marshmallows still have not browned, but it's making me very happy that they are like puffed up a little bit. Some of them get golden. I think you could probably also, if you wanted, depending on if this gets to it, but if you wanted that like super golden, like almost not necessarily black, but like if you wanted that look, you could always put your oven on broil and put the tray up a little bit closer because then it heats it right at the top. I'll just put it in there for a couple minutes. So I'll check my other timer. And it went off. So as it is with noodles, I feel like once it hits 2 minutes, I'm checking them probably more often than I need to be. Stir it around a little bit. Find some noodles, a lot of beans. All right. So I feel like our noodles are good. The last thing that I think we have to do is just add the cheese and stir it until it's melted in. I'm just going to check this quick so it doesn't go over. Still looks the same, so I'm going to set it for 2 more minutes. Then I'm going to get my cheese out of the fridge. So I just have a cup of cheddar. I think when I was sort of reading some of the things with this recipe, they say cheddar is like since it is sharp, it's a good cheese to use because you can use like less of it and still get that flavor, and it melts well. So we're just going to pour that in, mix it around until it's melted. So this is supposed to be some sort of like fusion between mac and cheese and chili. It's been a few years since I've had this, so I'm excited. And you can, if you want to top it with something, you can kind of use your own discretion. I feel like it would be good with some sour cream, some extra cheese, an avocado, maybe some diced onions, diced tomato, whatever you think. But see, now it's melted and it's covered. So we're just going to turn it off. And we're done. We're done with our chili. I'm going to move my lid. Let's check. Oh, they're starting to puff even more. This is going to go off and annoy me. So they're not getting like super golden, but I might just take it out anyway. It's melted. I'm sure the marshmallows are gooey. So you can sort of, it's on its verge. So I'm just gonna try it and see what's up. I had started a marshmallow that I'm gonna finish. So I have my graham cracker. I'm gonna break it into a nice little quarter. And then, here, let me, so you can see the, hopefully, gooiness. We'll try to, yeah. I can't see it super well with the glare, but got a nice drippy gooiness to it. It tastes very much like summer. So I think super easy thing, but hopefully you might have those ingredients around in your house. Seems like it could look pretty fancy too. As like a nice little thing to have at home, or eventually when we can all hopefully be together. A nice little summer dessert. So that's all I have today. Like I said before, this makes 8 servings. I think it said 10 cups total. So you can easily, if you don't think you're going to eat it, portion it into like individual portions and freeze it. Normally, if I don't eat something within about a week, then I'm gonna freeze it or throw it away just for like food safety reasons. Yeah, so thanks so much for joining. Hopefully we see you in a couple weeks. And remember, if you need to make an appointment to come to the pantry, I'll be open on Friday, but shoot an email to UM-Dearborn Pantry at umich.edu to schedule an appointment between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. See you later.